You've done $2.5 billion worth of construction projects.
If you're going to be a GC and you're an entrepreneurial type person, you got to know the ins and outs of the business. You can't go into it blind. You do have to have an understanding.
Bro, you are the guy. If someone wants to go get bonding and wants to build skyscrapers.
I always say to my people, the root word of contracting is contract.
Marshall Wilkinson. Hey, man, I'm so honored to have you on the Jesse Lane podcast. You've done $2.5 billion worth of construction projects. You're in New York. You are at kind of like this Elon Musk level of contracting, of construction, of general contracting. So it's a pleasure to have you here. And I'm just curious, man, because you're obviously the expert when it comes to bonding, when it comes to building $1 billion business. You know, I'm the $10 to $100 million guy, at least right now, and about 2024 if you're watching this. But bro, you are the guy. If someone wants to go get bonding and wants to build skyscrapers, you understand risk management, you understand schedules. So, but I want to step back because you have been, swinging a hammer since you were in a high chair, right? And so There's a lot of people that DM me on Instagram. I'm sure maybe you get a lot of DMs as well. Hey, I have no experience. I'm 19. I want to get into construction. What do I do? And what I tell them is, go get that experience, man. Go, you got to understand, you got to feel it. You got to smell it, breathe it. You got to get that man glitter, that sawdust. You really got to kind of feel the trade before you can kind of manage it, at least at the beginning of your career. But what are your thoughts on that with your 40 plus years, multi-generational experience in big boy contracting?
Yeah.
Glad to have you on the show too, bro.
Listen, happy to be here. I'm glad we finally connected, and I appreciate your malleability with time. I know I pushed you back a little bit, so I appreciate that, and happy to be here.
Glad to have you.
I think in order to accurately answer that question, Jesse, I'm a kind of get in the weeds and really precise type of guy. It depends on what type of model of contracting the person's interested in. Mm-hmm. If you are interested in being an MEP, then there is no question you got to get a master license in the MEPs, and you really need to know that work very well. You got to be in the field and get the experience. If you're going to be a GC and you're an entrepreneurial type person, I always say to my people, the root word of contracting is contract. And I really would suggest that a person understands that this is a business, understand the business portion of it, the contract portion, the risk management. And yes, to your point that, you do have to have the field experience, just like in any industry that you'd ever be a part of. You've got to know the ins and outs of the business. You can't go into it blind. You do have to have an understanding. So you got to get the experience in the field. But as a GC, there's a little bit more room and malleability to play there. Depending on how capitalized you are, you could hire very experienced estimators and project managers. The fish rots at the head of every organization. And so if the head of that organization isn't a risk management, schedule-oriented organization, it isn't business-minded, doesn't bring a sense of corporatism to the game, you're never going to be in a position to scale. So I think that MEPs require a little bit longer time in the field. Mm-hmm. I think GCs could kind of get the plane in the air a little bit quicker as far as scaling is concerned without having to spend so much time in the field.
Yeah, and so guys, what Marshall is saying here, if you're going to be mechanical, electrical, plumbing, maybe if you're going to do framing, if you're going to be a framing, Division 9 guy, if you're going to be doing drywall, metal framing, ceilings, acoustical ceilings, flooring, paint, you got to understand the trade at a micro detail. But in my opinion, I've made a lot of YouTube videos about this, obviously, in the past. Like, I really want to see a GC, especially someone who's going to start a general contracting company, to really know like what the subcontractors are doing. So maybe this is the answer that we could both kind of, agree on, is maybe they go work as a project manager for another general contractor, because they're going to understand budgets. They're going to understand schedules. They're going to understand, risk management to some degree, which I'd love to dive into your take on risk management in a minute. But so what do you think about that? I mean, a good place for...
I'm sorry to overtalk you. Yes, I agree. So I say this all the time, that a project manager, a good project manager should be a guy who could be a contractor, but isn't entrepreneurial or isn't capitalized. So I wouldn't recommend you be a GC if you didn't have the chops for project management. And if you have the project management chops, it's typically because you graduated from the field. So there's no way around the field experience. You have to do it.
Yeah, I agree.
But if I was a young guy and I said, hey, I want to be a GC, I'd make sure that I get my field experience in play, but don't just stay there. A lot of contractors graduate
they get stuck
from this hybrid of I was great on the tools and now I'm going to take that same mentality and be a GC, and it's going to be miserable. You're just going to create a job for yourself.
They fall into the entrepreneurial trap, the E-Myth by Michael E. Gerber.
Yeah, the E-Myth.
They have an entrepreneurial seizure, and they're like, oh, well, I'm great at my job, but I'm not great at running a business, but I don't know that. So what are some ways that someone could, what does risk management even mean, bro? Like, let's talk about that.
Well, risk management in the way that I deploy it and the way that I was raised is contract risk and schedule risk. I mean, if you look at construction, that's really all our risk is. Our risk is in our ability to estimate appropriately, come up with a proper budget, make sure that we hit our units, and that our contractual risk is covered. In the world that I come from, every project has liquidated damages that are extremely severe.
How much per day?
It's $5,000 a day.
Jeez, man. Guys, that is next level stuff. Liquidated damages means every day you're late on the schedule you agreed to, minus any change orders, I guess, would be a charge that you don't get the money on your retainage, I guess, or whatever, just at the end of the job.
Yeah, well, minus any excusable change orders, right? So we could get change orders that may not be compensatory, or they may make you work concurrently. And so the baseline schedule and the contract duration is still in play.
Now, what you might want to do, would you recommend going ahead and adding additional days to the contract with every change order if you can?
Every single change order is not just labor and material, but it's time and Gen Cons.
Yeah, general conditions.
So I train all my guys that every single change order is time and Gen Cons. If there's time, there's Gen Cons.
So the general conditions would be project manager, superintendent, extra dumpsters if needed, like whatever all the general conditions.
Connex boxes, CM trailer, office staff in the CM trailer, the water system, the coffee, the quill bill for the pages for the printer and the ink.
It almost sounds like job overhead for a job.
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
I mean, general conditions are direct project costs. They're not included in your OH.
Yeah.
And I'll fight that to the death, and I have many times. In fact, to this day, I have the largest claim settlement in the city of New York at the New York City Controller's Office for construction delay claim.
How much was that?
$33 million.
Wow, that's intense.
And I fought that in many rooms with many attorneys in the city of New York.
Yeah. So you seem like you.
Those are direct project costs. They're not incorporated inclusive of my overhead and profit.
Right. So it seems like you understand construction law also as a lawyer.
I do, yes.
You went to an institute for arbitrators. You went to Harvard. You have a great education, traditional education, which is interesting because you're an entrepreneur, right? Not that traditional.
Well, I knew where I was going.
Yeah, okay. You had the plan.
So I've been groomed for this,
Yeah. From the high chair.
From the high chair.
What did they feed you, man? Like nails?
They don't make guys like my dad. You have to understand, my dad started, single family, and he started from the bottom and started as a surveyor and built a business and, a real man's man,
And so how did he get into public work from building houses?
Well, he started in surveying, and then out of surveying, he ended up working in construction, and then moving out into, I think one of his first forays kind of into the bigger game is he actually got a job being a construction manager.
Oh.
And he went and did pretty decent projects as a construction manager.
So,
and in the late 70s, got into his own business.
So when you say construction manager, that was not his own business. He was working for someone else.
Yeah, he was working for a company.
Okay. And then he started. Okay, so then did he go straight into public work stuff, or what?
No. So yeah, I mean, just like any other entrepreneur, you got to start small, with the connections that you have.
Right.
So small commercial work.
Yeah.
Never residential.
Right.
And then once we were able to get a bond, we got a payment performance bond. We were able to get a surety behind us. Then we were able to make the foray into public works.
And how did you get your first one? Just based off of financials?
There's a funny story that is behind it, but financials and a lot of threats, stuff like that. You got to remember it's a different time in the 70s and 80s, right?
Right.
So construction in New York is a little bit of a different animal back then.
It's a little bit more like the mafia, it sounds like.
Well, like I said, he's a tough guy.
Yeah, a tough guy. So he raised you, right? So
Yes.
you just know you've been on the job sites. You've seen not just the job sites, guys. It's not about just job sites. It's about contracts. It's about insurance. It's about workers' comp.
Yeah.
It's about risk. What else is about scheduling? So you know how to schedule, a project like probably the back of your hand, right?
It's my number one tool.
Yeah, scheduling.
CPM schedules everything.
Yeah. So what
most people don't know is that on these projects, you got to remember the CPM schedule is a legal document. So when you put a CPM together in the city of New York, what's required is Primavera. That's the software that's used. And in Primavera P6, that schedule, that baseline schedule that is submitted and approved by the engineer and the CM in the city, the owner approves it. At that point, the die is cast. That is a legal document, and everything in construction is based off that schedule. So how I document time and delay, the only way to do it outside of the notice provisions in the contract is in the schedule. So when you forensically go back to say, hey, look, I know the job's 2 years late, and you're firing a cannon at me for liquidated damages.
For $5,000.
My delay analysis shows that I'm not on hook for any of this time. All the delays have been no act cause consequence of me. They've been design error and omission change orders or field condition change orders that are, have nothing to do with me, and I wasn't behind schedule.
If it's raining,
wherever I could work, I worked.
That's like a field condition. If it's raining, and you do a field condition change order.
No, not for rain. I mean, unless it's egregious, unless you got 3 weeks of rain and there's no work indoors that I could do. Remember, wherever there's a delay on the job, the owner owns the float of the project. They own the float in the scale on the schedule, so they could force you to resequence work at any given time. So they're going to make you do work out of sequence, and you owe that to the owner. So if there's an issue where I can't work out of sequence because I can't wire a structure that isn't built yet, well then, yeah, we're sitting on our hands, and that's a purely excusable delay. But otherwise, you have to work where work is available to keep the schedule going.
Right. So people finding work, I get that question a lot as far as, like marketing a construction company. It sounds like public work is just all posted, and it's maybe a relationship, it's maybe low bid, it's maybe a mixture of the two as of why you would get the job.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how to find construction projects, man, in general?
Okay. Well, I mean, to have a strong business, contracting business, you have to have both. So yes, we're focused on big municipal projects because we're a union shop. And so once you sign as a union signatory, your hands are kind of tied. You can only do union work. So the private work that you go after has to be larger in scale that will afford union labor, especially at those rates. But you have to have a mixture of both. So on the union side, yes, it's rip 'em and read 'em. There isn't much customer service and satisfaction that's necessary, because if I'm the low bidder and I can get a bond, you got to give me the job, even if you don't like me, even if you've been fighting with me on every project for 15 years, because we all know each other.
Jeez.
The city employees, they're there for 30 years. I know the guy since I was a little kid, and then I'm 35 years old screaming at the guy. They know me for a very long time. So even if they hate my guts, they still have to give me the deal.
That's crazy, man.
On the private aspect, you have to cultivate those relationships. You have to use a little bit more of a velvet glove. You can't just be so contract oriented and smash them over the head for change orders and delays. Mm-hmm. You kind of have to pick your shots. And but that work is done on a high level vis-a-vis relationship building.
Have you ever lost money on a bond?
On a bond?
Like a bonded project, like something goes wrong and they take your left testicle or something. I've heard some horror stories.
Well, no, that's what I live for. That's the purpose of me being here. We don't do projects for practice.
Yeah.
Right. So every job I do, I have a bond on it.
Yeah.
And I don't lose money on jobs.
Because of good estimating and everything. Have you ever?
No, well, yeah, good estimating. And listen, there's a constant gardening effort in risk management that's required on these projects. Like that job that I told you about, that was a very big lawsuit at the end.
Yeah.
That we ended up settling.
Yeah.
That job was over 10 years late.
Oh, wow.
So we're keeping ourselves afloat during that. We're break even. We're luckily breaking even throughout that entire process. And through the entire process, I'm kicking and screaming and crying, and I'm asking for interim change orders to relieve me. Otherwise, I'm going to go out of business because I can't afford it. I mean, there definitely have been dark days and really scary scenarios. But, I'm in control of my own destiny, and the city's not going to put me out of business. So I'm going to do everything in my power to fight them, get to the top of the stack, talk to the controllers office, get my money out of the deal, especially if I'm being egregiously harmed. Right? So like I said, like that world has nothing to do with a hammer and a nail. There's everything to do with your ability to follow the contract, to be able to advocate for yourself in a meaningful way, and to be able to negotiate and close that deal so you can get money and move on. Most contractors don't know how to do that. They don't know how to fight with the owner. They don't know how to advocate for themselves. They don't follow the contract. They're not well written. They don't follow the notice procedures. They don't have a CPM schedule. They're not showing a delay analysis. Like, none of that has anything to do with terminating and landing conductor wire. The union men are trained to do that, and they'll do that all day, every day, better than I ever could. Mm-hmm. My job is to steward my company and be an administrator of that project.
Well, let me ask you this.
Right? So
when you're estimating, or you are managing an estimator on your team, whatever.
Yeah.
And you get that electrical bid for $1 million for this project.
Sure.
My point on saying that is, if you don't know all the home runs and you don't know that this type of outlet or GFI or main breaker or where the MDP, the main distribution panel really is going, or, you know, the MDP is in the wrong spot and whatever, there's anything can happen, right? You got to run a whole new transformer, like whatever, stuff could happen if you don't understand the nuts and bolts of construction. Yeah. Not that, you know, you need to be working for an electrician.
Well, I'll tell you this. I'm going to bid what's on that drawing.
Yeah.
So if you're going to change the location of a panel, you're going to change order me for that. I'm getting a change order for that, because if that requires an extra route, if that requires more pipe and wire, I'm going to get paid for that labor and material. So whatever's on that drawing is I'm going to bid. So to your point, you've got to make sure that your estimates are airtight. You can't just do a rip 'em and read 'em bid and just be like, you know, we're going to wing it. You have to dial in your scope of work perfectly.
Yeah. So
and
what
you
about,
have to know your man hours.
Okay, if you're in-house, but what about VIF? An architect's favorite saying, verify in field.
Yeah, sure. So sometimes that's true.
Yeah, and so, you know,
and when you do have to verify in field, you do.
Yeah,
definitely. You have to take that into consideration.
I see more and more of that these days. Oh, verify in field, not my problem, not my fault. The architect, the engineer.
Well, so I'll just give you a little input on the argument that I make on that, right? Because I've crossed that bridge many times as well. I only analyze a drawing in respect to give a fair and accurate bid. That's my only duty and obligation. You guys have had 3 years to engineer this job, and I got 2 weeks to take it off and give you a price. So if something can't be verified in the field, or we're talking about a really large project here, I'm only looking at those drawings through the eyes of, or through the glasses of, giving you a fair and responsible, accurate bid. I'm not analyzing the constructability of the drawing. That's not my job. I'm just an installer. I'm not an engineer. So if there's a lot of that, if I've got the bids that I hate that are worse is if I got a bunch of allowances because I've got a bunch of unknowns, I'll walk away from that bid. I won't bid that job because I'm not taking that risk. I want to bid jobs that have drawings that are very specific, that are specs that are very specific, because that's my contract. That's what I'm bidding. That is my obligation to you, and that is what I will deliver. And if there's a deviation from that, then a change order is necessary, or a credit.
So let's talk estimating as far as takeoffs versus subcontractor bids, trusting your subs. How much of a takeoff do you find yourself doing versus getting 2 or 3 bids from different MEP and, you know, all the trades?
So where my experience comes from as an MEP, very little subbing I do. I only sub basically concrete work for duct banks, concrete pads for mechanical equipment. So I'm self-performing work as much as I can. I'm not trying to cannibalize my work.
Are you actively running a construction company right now?
No, I'm not. I currently have a non-compete. That's where this consulting thing came from.
Oh, okay. So did you?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I sold.
You sold your company?
Yeah, I sold my position in the company.
Okay.
This company's still operating, still kicking ass. It's run by very competent and excellent individuals.
That's cool.
But I'm in a non-compete. And so during the non-compete period, I decided to do consulting.
So what are you going to do after the non-compete's over?
Well, I'll tell you, honestly, Jesse, this consulting thing is grown to be bigger than anything I ever could imagined.
Dude,
it takes all my time, and I really enjoy it.
I'm feeling so fulfilled. I launched my automation blueprint coaching program in January 2024. It's now almost the end of March. I'm loving it. I'm loving it
Yeah.
almost even more than my construction company. I mean, I just hit 10 years in business 6 days ago on March 20th.
Congratulations.
Yeah. And it's like, I kind of love this more, man. This is so,
Yeah.
I'm so fulfilled. It's like when I get to the end of my,
definitely more fulfilling.
when I get to the end of my life, it's like, look at all these people I helped versus look how much money I made in my own business.
Absolutely. You're going to live forever. You're going to live forever through all of your material and educational material and the people that you help.
I love it, man.
No doubt about it.
People find us online. We're kind of in the same boat. I mean, I haven't sold my company. Honestly, bro, I've thought about it. It's an amazing company. I just brought on a CEO. I have every role delegated. I never go into the office. I'm living my own automation blueprint, But I like to say, my automation blueprint is you start with admin and bookkeeping and then superintendent. So those are the first two things you delegate. Then you look at marketing, sales, estimating, and project management, and you say, well, what am I best at? Hopefully, you're best at marketing and sales, right? Marketing would include biz dev as well. But then you want to delegate estimating and project management. That could be a project manager that helps with estimating. Maybe your superintendent can help with project management, and you cover on estimating for a little bit. But once you get all those greenlit, you bring on a COO to run all of that. Then you delegate sales. And then you're just doing CEO and marketing and biz dev, which is just high level vision, leadership, meet with your COO weekly. And I lived in that world for the last couple years, 2.5. Really, it took a long time to train my COO. Now I've just brought on a co-CEO, going to train her it's a woman, I'm going to train her for 6 months or so, and then release into her being the CEO. And so
Great.
It's really exciting. She's actually helping me with my coaching program as well. Her name's Angel. It's been a fantastic experience. I'm so fulfilled. I'm loving the time that I'm able to spend with these people and develop a program and really change the industry. And I'm also developing a software called Structure as well. But anyway, I won't bore you here, but it's launching hopefully by May 1st. That's my goal. But to bring structure to the contracting industry for processes and quizzes and scorecards and checklists and SOPs and task management, and eventually it'll do construction management as well to kind of take over Procore, Builder Trend, Job Tread. So anyway, yeah, man.
That's great.
So I'm curious, man, what are some ways that GCs can actually be more profitable? Because I think there's a lot of guys out there that are maybe not losing money on jobs, but they're making 10% or they're making 5%. How can they make 30, 40%? I mean, okay, those percentages might be totally bizarre for those $1 billion contracts, and they are. You're going to make 2%. I mean, but for
I make 30 points, man.
Really?
Yeah.
On a government.
100%.
Yeah, so that's amazing. That's big money. When you're talking big money and big percentages on big money, that's big money.
Yeah.
So how do you do that?
Yeah, we go in base bid at 30 points.
Okay, but if it's low bid wins the gig, then
everybody's going in at 30 points. For the work, you have to understand, for the work that I do, you can't have these little tiny guys can't get in that world. They can't undercut me. We all know it's the same 4 guys. Everybody's carrying 30 points on the job. And what'll happen is, this is truly what happens. Guys that come in lower, what they're doing is they're trying to add projects to their books because they're looking to sell. So when you're looking to sell, you want to add backlog. So you start taking these jobs at 20 points. So you're picking up all the work. So if I go through a dry spell and I know I haven't hit in 2 or 3 months and my competitor so-and-so is picking up every job, well, I know what he's looking to do. He's looking to load the books up so he can sell, because I know that he's not going to make any money with 20 points. All of these jobs are delayed. They're all incredibly slow. Efficiency drops off tremendously. And if they don't have the horsepower to fight these guys with claims and pound the table and everything that's required in that world, which isn't really in the private world, but in the public world, they don't have the strength in the project management and the project executives, I know they're not making any money.
When you say 30%,
so everyone's got to take the job at 30 to walk away with something less.
Are you talking on top of PM and Super?
No. Yeah, on top of PM and Super.
Okay.
So, the way our supers work is they're kind of roving supers. And they're not on the tools. They're there to make sure that schedule's getting implemented, and they're there for manpower and getting that information from the foreman and relaying that back up to the project managers.
Right.
So my supers are overhead, but my PMs are direct costs to the project, and they're baked into my Gen Cons.
Really?
So the way I operate my supers is a little different. My supers are not supers in the field on the tools.
Yeah.
They're troubleshooting guys with a lot of experience, and they rove around to many different projects during the day.
Okay. They're kind of like a general super, but you have a lot of general super.
Basically. And what materials need to be ordered, and how many men do we need to have next week based on the 2 week look ahead, and that gets filtered back up to the PM, who then makes the decision, makes the call to the union hall, pull the guys to the bench and reshuffle manpower.
And actually does the ordering and actually who actually adjusts the schedule?
Well, when I was in my role, I was a schedule Nazi.
Were you a
So
PM?
I did a schedule for every job. I did every single schedule update. I did not use a CPM schedule consultant. I'm a master at scheduling.
What was your role?
And I only did it because it controls my destiny.
Were you a PM?
I was a PM, yeah, sure.
That's what you're saying. Definitely. You were a PM, and that's what role you were in when you're talking about that?
No, when I was a COO, I was running the schedules.
Oh, really? Why?
Because nobody else can do it. I'm not going to farm it out to a consultant.
Yeah.
So when I need a report, or I want to make the critical path look a certain way based on a change order, I have to pay this guy, get on the phone with him, and he's not going to do it right. I got 3 iterations. No.
Right.
Not on my jobs. I'm running at every Monday morning is a project manager meeting.
Yeah.
Every single day, every Monday, I'm running the entire day is PM meetings, and I run the projects based on the financials and the schedule, and I'm in there with my laptop P6 running the schedule on every job.
Right.
See, the difference between what you were saying with your blueprint model and all that is our model that would never work. We were hands-on everything. There was never a time where I was able to pull out of the business in any manner. All of us, and we had 15 project managers. We have 7 estimators, CEO, CFO, COO, president, chairman, and we were all on top of that. It's our money.
Yeah, but sounds stressful, but yeah.
Very stressful. And that's what I tell everybody. This is an extremely stressful industry to be in.
Yeah.
It's a very stressful work environment. So you have to protect your risk to make it worthwhile. If not, go open a deli.
Yeah.
If you're not making your money doing this, get out of the business.
Yeah,
Because you're going to have a heart attack.
I know. Gosh, that's scary. I mean, I don't know that it has to be so stressful. I mean, I don't do a ton of public work, so maybe that's where that stress comes. But
that's 1,000%. When you're staring down the barrel of $5,000 a day, you have construction managers.
That's what it is.
Whose job is to screw you to justify their existence to the owner.
Right.
And nobody cares about you. They don't care about putting you out of business. They don't care about anything. They just care about the contract. The stress levels are enormous.
Right. So how can someone make more money on a project or across their business? I guess a business in general. If you have a construction company, how can you increase your net profit? Because we all know money comes in the top. You got cost of goods sold. That equals your gross profit. Then you got a whole ton of overhead. Then that gives you what you're left over for net profit. And then you got to pay Uncle Sam. So what are some strategies that someone could do to kind of do a couple more pluses and minuses on the right areas there?
Well, I'll tell you, the first thing is going to be the niche of contracting that you choose, right?
Yeah.
So we chose water, wastewater. And in water, wastewater, our manpower is very good at that work. It's really heavy industrial. And so the guys that we have are very efficient in that work. So I know that if we bid that job with our man hours based on our database, we didn't use RS Means or necessarily NICA. We have our own database of labor units. So that's a part of what the foreman and the superintendent are tracking. Yeah. Which gangs work well together. So I know which 2 guys are great at bending pipe. I know which 2 guys are great at pulling wire. What 2 guys are great at landing terminations in a panel. So we have an idea of the man hours that's required. Right. So we can get very competitive with our man hours. And our guys do that type of work. So there really isn't a learning curve there. So we chose that niche. Plus that owner has, a lot of money, has almost unlimited pockets. Making sure that our estimates have our margin in it. The biggest mistake is that guys, their margins are too low. So, you got to make sure that, you're not being a pig and that you're still competitive with pricing,
Question on margins. On your divisions, do you ever put a fluff division markup?
Yes.
How often do you do that and how much?
Listen, you can't. The only place you have malleability with fluffing numbers in a division is going to be in material. It's not necessary in the union world. It's not with labor. Everybody can kind of dial in the man hours, how many minutes it's going to take, and what rate I'm carrying. Maybe I can carry a blended rate or a journeyman rate and have apprentices do that work, which is what we're all trying to do. And in that case, I collect the delta. So if I carry a journeyman rate and I have apprentices perform that work, the delta between the two, I get to keep. But it's really in materials. So, at the beginning of the year, we buy copper contracts. And so we're hoping that we can buy copper, lock in copper pricing very low. And as the year goes on, that copper material escalates. And so we're buying copper at a lower price, but we're bidding the job at current rate copper prices. Right. And so I'll get the delta in between that on the material. So
there's a couple strategic things that you're doing there to kind of think outside the box.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you have to get creative. And it really is, it's organization specific.
Right.
We have certain strengths and weaknesses in our organization, and we're aware of what they are, and we play to them. That's why we went water, wastewater, because we knew that in the nascent stages of the business, our team was really well qualified for that. So I didn't go and run and bid high-rise work, and I'm not bidding bridge work. I'm bidding water treatment work. So like I know what my niche is.
You know your niche. Like you're not going to step outside the niche.
No, I'm going to do my best not to.
Unless you get slow.
Correct. If I get slow, and then I really know that I can do schoolwork. So that's another niche that we have. So schoolwork, we're very good at schoolwork. We're also very good at large scale solar. And so within those three, you're going to notice that's 99% of the projects that we take.
Love it. Okay, what are some project management tips that you have? Just a couple seconds here, a couple minutes.
Yeah.
For those PMs out there, or those GCs that have their own business and they're about to hire a PM, or they're doing PM stuff themselves.
Yeah. Well, the most important thing in project management is organization. Okay. Time blocking is a huge thing, not just for executives, but also for project managers. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I mean, we train our PMs, and our PMs they time block their day in 15-minute increments, and they're all about organization. I think the next best thing for a project manager to do, which they do not do, and they're extremely averse to doing for some reason. But the second we win a job, that folder goes from estimating to project management.
Right.
The first thing that needs to be done is that project manager reads the contract and understands all the scopes of work and the risk. Mm-hmm. The very next thing he does, he has to create a schedule. Because the schedule will force the project manager to think through the project.
Yeah.
I need him thinking. I don't want him just focused on the cheeseburger that he's eating right now. I need him to think through the project.
Yeah.
Because if he could think through the project, then I could buy my time on buyout. Because if I know when I need to have particular trades there, and I don't need to buy them all out right now and have him overwhelmed.
Right.
We've created a schedule. I know when my notice to proceed is. I know when certain work is supposed to take place. I can go out and buy out at more competitive rates.
Yeah, like you don't need to go buy the painting right now. You could go buy the demo and the framing, and the saw cutting, and the rough plumbing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then we could, this is business. So then we can go to guys that we know are slow.
Yeah.
I could get better pricing out of them. Hey, listen, if you want this, I need you to take 10 grand off the bid. You got the deal.
Yeah.
By the way, you don't got to drop trial and do it now. I just need you here in a month and a half. Could you do it?
You know what most people don't understand is exactly what you just said right there. Negotiation. How important is negotiation in business, Marshall?
It's everything. It's really everything. It's funny, when you started, you said I was a sales and negotiation expert.
Yeah.
And it's just because I'm a contractor. You become a negotiation expert as a contractor.
You have to.
All we're doing is negotiating.
As an entrepreneur. Yeah, negotiations. It's contracts.
Yep.
It's not hammers, and I think that's the biggest aspect of this podcast that someone can take away.
I just want to add one more thing, Jesse, before you move to our next point. Mm-hmm. As far as increasing margins.
Yeah.
I really am a firm believer in making sure that you get time and you get your Gen Cons on your change orders. Contractors are leaving a lot on the table on change orders. So you have your labor and material and change order, but labor and material and extra work, if it's not done concurrently, is going to lead to more time. If we're going to add time to the schedule, you've got to capture the cost.
I've had a lot of clients.
Because it's not just the direct cost, but it's the opportunity cost.
Yeah.
My project manager has to be on this job 2 months more now and have a diminished bandwidth, and I can't put him on my next job.
Right. But why
Right?
should you charge? Look at it from the client's point of view. I've heard this a lot. What are all these fluff fees in here? And I get that. I mean, if I was a client, I'd be like, rah, rah, rah. This is crazy. General conditions. This is,
Well, listen, in a public world, it's a little bit easier. If this job is 2 months longer, I have to have a trailer out there for 2 more months.
Yeah, it makes sense. For sure.
Right? Now, if I have men working, and I'm a union, if I have men working, my project manager, they need supervision.
Right.
So they're not an overhead cost to me. They're a direct project cost. And because of you or your design error and omission, I have to add 2 months to this project. So I'm going to be penalized because your engineer made a mistake? No way. Never in a million years is that going to happen. You owe me that money, and you're going to pay me that money.
What do you do when it's your fault?
Well, then you have to eat it.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah,
well, but then you got that 30%.
Like you can't, and also, I will also say, don't be a pig. So when it is on us, you have to be a gentleman, and you got to tell them that's on me, and I got to eat that, and let them know, because it's not so much me smashing them over the head every day. If we stepped on our own, if we got in our own way, I got to eat that, and if you're going to eat it, make sure everybody knows that you're eating it. Yeah, let them know. Take credit for the fact that you're being a stand-up
What I like
guy.
to do on that is I send them an invoice that is marked off, paid in full.
That's cool.
Yeah, actually send them an invoice and be like, don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I paid for that.
Yeah, I paid for it.
Yeah.
Because then all these little things, you kind of bottle them up and you build resentment. It's just like in a marriage or in any other relationship. Your relationship with your client should be treated the same way. So you will die by 1,000 paper cuts in this business. Yeah.
It's
1,000 change orders.
Death by a duck.
Yeah, 1,000 change orders.
yeah. That job I told you, that big claim job?
Yeah.
We had 210 change orders just on the e-contract.
Oh, wow.
210. So our base bid was $39 million, and when we left it was $63 million.
What happened?
That's all change orders.
Why?
Single prime, just the e-contract. That job was like $500 million job with all the trades. But for the E, it was 39 single base bid, and then after 210 change orders, it was 63 million. It's crazy to think that I would absorb 10 years of labor, material escalation, and carrying a project manager and all my Gen Cons without getting paid for that is great. It's asinine. It's madness.
Right. And so you won the lawsuit or whatever. So
we settled. Right. So the thing is, when you sue the government, they can't go to court with you, because if they lose, then there's case law and a precedent is sent, and then every contractor that's working for the city is going to come after them for it. So they will settle with you.
Yeah.
It's just a matter for how much they try to give you pennies on the dollar.
And you're saying you were the electrical contractor on that job?
Yeah.
Yeah. For 60 million or 39 to 63, whatever.
Yeah, it was 63 million at the end.
Yeah. That's crazy. You said all your own in-house tradesmen, journeymen, all this stuff.
Yeah, over a 10-year delay period.
But you were also, I know you came from the MEP world.
Yeah.
But you were also a general contractor.
Yeah.
But so did you have an electrical company and a general contracting company at the same time?
Yes.
Okay. That's a lot dude, you've done a lot at once.
Yeah, man. I've done it. Well, when it comes to construction, I've done it all. It's the only thing I've done is construction. Right.
Yeah, but it's a lot to manage all at once, the trades companies and general.
Absolutely.
Because
listen, I got to tell you, Jesse, I ain't new to this. I'm true to this.
Yeah.
I'm a real maniac.
You really are, man.
I'm not a married guy, and I've dedicated my life to this business.
Wow.
And all I ever wanted to do is be successful at this game, let the Wilkinson name ring on, and know that my dad created a guy who can carry the ball.
Amazing. Is your dad still alive?
He is.
Nice. That's a beautiful thing, man. I love that.
Yeah. He's my best friend.
That's so beautiful, man. And plus he raised you to be, a part of your career, and which is a big deal. All right. Definitely. So I'm just curious, real fast. What are a couple of KPIs? What are some things that a GC can look at to know if their business is on track or off track? Okay. Well, you definitely got to look at. You have to look at your margins versus your burn rate. So that's something that a lot of guys miss. You need to know what your carry is. And you'd be surprised when I ask guys what their carry is and they don't know. I know what my carry is. I always knew what my carry was. Yeah, mine's $140 a month. Perfect. Exactly. You know what your carry is. Yeah.
I mean, and I bet you with all your clients, if you ask them in the beginning before they get with you in your program, they're like, I don't know. I got to look it up. I got to go talk to my QuickBooks guy. That's a problem. You got to know what your carry is, and you need to make sure that you are your KPI and carry and your net margin on your projects. You've got to make sure that you are dialing that in. That you know that with a certain degree of confidence that no matter what project I take on, I'm going to be able to net X, Y, Z. Because the only way you can have any sort of flattening on the curve, any sort of predictive forecasting nature in revenue, like if I owned a deli and I know that I buy Snickers bars for 50 cents, but I sell them for $1, I know every Snickers bar I sell, I'm going to make 50 cents on.
Gross profit.
Gross profit. In contracting, people are, it's too much like this if you don't have those dialed in. Then I don't have any confidence in forecasting. Then my bank's not going to have any confidence in lines of credit. You know, if I was going to take on outside investors and dollars, they have no confidence in the forecasting of my revenue. I need to know that no matter how big or small the project, my estimating is dialed in, my project management is dialed in, where I get a certain efficiency and I get a certain amount of man-hour productivity out of men, that I'm accurately dialing that in, and I know that my net margin is going to be XYZ if I go in on jobs at 30 points.
Love it. I think of it like a bucket of overhead that I need to hit for the year based off my gross profit, right?
Yes.
Because then once the gross profit hits that overhead amount, boom.
So this is what I do, right? So what we would do is we would take down a large project, and the money that we're making on a large project, we would take that to pay the burn rate.
That's exactly the way I think of it. My $8 million
everything
job,
else is profit.
My $8 million job pays my overhead for the year. Every other little pizza shop I do is just gravy.
Exactly. And that's why, and I'll just tell you, just anecdotally, I'll be on a $60 million job, that Tolman Island project.
Yeah.
I'll be on that project, and I'll be doing a $600 light in a bathroom in a park somewhere. We'll take it all on.
Wow.
Because I have to keep men working. And remember, I'm self-performing, but I know my overhead is carried for the next 4 or 5 years through the big job. Then let's load on some. I'm willing to take a little bit more risk, maybe not even go in at 30 points. Maybe I'll go in at 20 on these because I know they're all profit jobs.
Right. That's a big thing with business management when it comes to estimating and bidding. Is it's actually more, I always say from the heart, but it's not from the heart. It's more of a kind of not emotional even, but it's, did I make money on that job? Am I breaking my overhead nut for the year, like you're just talking about? And so then boom, go, not maybe a $600 light, but you could go and take on that little, $2 million job or the $100,000 job, depending on where people are at. So would you recommend people do the in-house thing like you did, or subcontract? Because I subcontract everything. I started first, I tried to get a couple guys. I just subcontract everything. And I have, you're saying thumbs up, but I have PMs, estimators, superintendents, an office manager, a COO, a CEO, and that's it. I mean, I have a couple APMs and a permit coordinator. Done. Yeah.
I'm with you 100%. If I was a GC, I'd just have a laptop and a cell phone. and my team.
Yeah.
Now, if you're gonna, I'm biased because remember, all knives cut both ways. So there's a lot of flexibility in that model, but there's also a lot of flexibility in the self-performing model, meaning I'm really in control of my destiny.
And you make more
with
money.
The work that I can take on and my schedule. However, the biggest issue is labor, right? So what I would say, if anybody who's going to do the self-performing model, it would be in their best interest to go union. Because when you become union, you lose the labor issue. You're paying the union, especially in union strongholds like New York and Chicago. These are real union towns where I don't have to worry about if I need 50 guys on a site tomorrow and I call the business manager, I'll have 50 guys tomorrow. And so that's the benefit of being a part of the union if you're self-performing. But if you're going to be a GC, sub it all out. Let the subs deal with the manpower.
Yeah, it's just so much less stress, less headache, and then you don't have to keep them busy. There's always that thing in the back of your head, crap, where am I going to send all my, I have 9 framers, where are they going to go Monday morning?
Exactly. That's what I was saying, truly. Mm-hmm. That is a true thing. Yeah. We're working, I remember, I'm leaving Tolman Island, fighting a fight over there, and then I'm getting a call, the guy who's fixing a bulb in a bathroom. in Southampton Beach. I'm not kidding. Well, that's because we had the Parks Department contract. It was a unit price.
Your thing keeps
they
doing
called
that
us
thumbs
up to
up.
fix that, but it's only $600.
Yeah.
But it's worth it because that guy's carry is $400 for the day. I might as well make $200 off him, send him to fix the light.
And it's not even about the 200. It's about keeping them on your payroll.
Yeah, keeping them going. Sure,
keeping them going, because if you lose them, you can't do the next big 60 million.
Definitely, you can't, especially good guys. But A guys, you can't lose.
Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years, man?
It's a great question. I'm very bullish on the industry based on the fact that construction and contractors are in more need now than they ever have been. And that's in all sectors, and even especially residential, where when I was growing up, my dad would do his own brakes and change his own oil, and he'd do all the stuff in the house. That doesn't happen anymore. People use contractors more than they ever have.
Yeah.
We need to cure the problem we have on labor.
Right.
We have to figure out how we can bring our best and brightest back into this industry.
Yeah.
And that's part of my mission. When people think contracting, they don't think about the level of contracting that I'm talking about. And in this world, there is a lot of money to be made. It's a very, very good business. And you could sleep well at night knowing that you're building the city that you're living in. I didn't rip somebody off on a stock trade. I go to sleep at night knowing that I'm building something that's functional. I'm building something for the benefit of mankind, for civilization in my city. I don't think there's any more nobler of a thing that you can do and still make a profit at it. And I'm trying to, in my social media, I'm trying to get that across to younger people that you don't have to go to Wall Street. My demographic of people that I went to school with, they all went to Wall Street, and people my age, that's where they go.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to go down there. You don't have to snap necks and cash checks in that way. There is another way to do it. And then also giving hope to guys who are on the tools to say, you can move and migrate off the tools if you're an entrepreneur and you get a mentor and you get the right information and you plug in correctly, that there is an opportunity for you to control your own destiny and have a business that can be meaningful for you.
What do you think it takes for a carpenter or a pipe layer or a blah, 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 whatever trade person in the field mentally, what needs to happen to their mind?
Well, I think, what I've noticed with my clients since I've started this consulting business, aside from the bigger players that hire me for consulting in that realm, taking out some of the newer guys, that, come to me from Instagram and social, the biggest thing is opening their mind to be an entrepreneur and getting them to kind of start thinking bigger and more of a business person. But what I've noticed is once I teach these guys how to sell and close deals,
changes the game.
Then they feel like they have a superpower.
Yeah, it's a superpower. I like that.
And they could go out and say, okay, well, I know how to get somebody to say yes. I know how to get past the price objection.
Yeah.
And then they feel empowered and they get confidence, and then they go out and sell work.
Yeah.
And that's what always happens. And they sell work, and then we hit the next choke point. Well, then how are you going to deliver on that work?
And how are you going to deliver? Then how are you going to manage your books?
How do we scale that? So it's like these tranches of graduation that these guys are going through, and
so it's like sales. You kind of start there, and then you go into actually fulfilling the work, and then you talk about QuickBooks.
Exactly right. So we go from sales and how to fulfill that work. Then I go right into SOPs.
Yeah.
So I have all of my clients have SOPs and checklists.
Yeah.
To everything. I've got it down to the atomic level. And then they mimic a lot of the stuff that I track, my trackers that I track in Monday and profitability and stuff. They mimic all of that. I give that to my people. So they get very systems and process oriented.
Yeah.
And then the next piece is we're looking for human resources to plug into those positions so we can keep the wheel going and they can go back out and sell more.
So when we jump off, because I don't want to mess up our screen share right now, I want to end the podcast and then share my screen with you and show you my structure software. And because it's gonna radically transform the industry and want your feedback. So awesome. Checklists, scorecards, all this stuff, processes, SOPs, it's all boom. Just that, it's a software just for that.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I'm excited to show you. So, but you can check out structure.com with no E if you want to check it out. All right, so dude, this has been awesome. Is there anything else that you want to add to this? I think there's been so many valuable takeaways for a PM or a super or a carpenter who wants to be an entrepreneur, or the entrepreneur who's been in 3 years or the guy who's been 8, 15, 25 years and just wants to tighten up his estimating, just wants to tighten up his risk management, right?
Yeah.
There's been a lot of good takeaways. So anything else you kind of want to add here at the end?
What I want to say is, I appreciate you doing what you do. You do a podcast. I know that you work very hard.
Mm-hmm.
If I was more inclined, I'd do the same. And but I'm happy that you're carrying the torch here for this industry and putting a good light on it. And you're doing the right thing, and you're not scamming people, and we're not just selling education. We're real. We walk our walk,
right?
And we walk our talk. And so I really appreciate you, and thanks for taking the time and having me on.
Where can people find you, man?
I'm really most active on Instagram, so Real Marshall Wilkinson. And you can also find me on YouTube, Marshall Wilkinson.
Thanks for being on the show. Remember to like and subscribe, everyone. Go check out Marshall on Instagram. I don't think you'll be disappointed on his Instagram. It's really valuable stuff. That's where I found him. A lot of people recommend him. And talk soon. Peace.